Hi. I want to try that again. Hello. I wasn't ready to come back. My name is Alma, and I'm happy to be here practicing with you tonight. Anybody here for the first time at the Dharma Bum Temple? Welcome. Anybody else feeling like it's the first time at the Dharma Bum Temple? Good. Any questions? Anything to share? Any comments? Yes.
That felt very pleasant. It doesn't usually feel so nice to meditate, but there was something kind of luxurious about the silence in the room. I don't know what it was. I didn't want to come back either.
Right? We got attached. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was nice. But like, where's the AC unit next door? That usually gets me. Mm-hmm. Where's the cat? So I got attached to the cat meowing next door sometimes. Yeah, I got pressed into the same luxury, like the way you said it. And it's interesting because sometimes I make myself wrong because I'm speaking about attachment in conversations here, and my conversation goes to the things that we get attached, but more in the sense of expectations or outcomes. So therefore, if our reality doesn't match that, we kind of reject it. But there's also the component of getting attached to the things that I like, that I prefer, that I will feel in alignment with my inner world. So yeah, there's definitely some practice of attachment and detachment in the sensations, the noises, the outer conditions. Sometimes in our dual mind, we go to the space of there's something wrong if the conditions for my practice are not ideal. However, friendly reminder, that is the practice on its own. Creating the awareness of whatever is happening around you and whatever is happening within you. So thank you for saying. Anything else? Anything else to add? Anything else to say? Yes.
Well, I guess to kind of add on to what you said, because I haven't done group meditation in a long time, it felt like with everybody being in sync, it amplified quieting the mind a lot quicker.
Yes. That's why we encourage coming here. Not to be like that, but to be like that. It does create. The first word that came to mind was accountability. And I always called myself out because I'm like in front of you, I'm trying to look good, like checking myself because maybe I'm like monitoring your stillness with my stillness. Anybody else comparing? No, just me? Okay. However, it's in the space of creating that collective consciousness, breathing in sync. Some of us might notice that we are one with the person next to us and we don't even know each other, but breathing maybe get to a point of being in sync. And yeah, my context is also Reiki, energy healing, family constellations. We are part of a constellation, energetically speaking. We can cause that effect And sometimes, especially when I'm volunteering in the back, I kind of visualize that grid. Because it does create a vortex, it does enhance the effect, the state. And that has been researched in places where there's monasteries and there's higher vibration. There's a different energy in those places. Some of the places, especially in California, for example, temples like the Dharma Bum Temple are doing their due diligence by us, raising the vibration, especially in places where there's chaos. We need more temples and more people practicing, so thank you for being here. Anything else to say? Perfect. So tonight I'm sharing from one of the basic books on meditation practice and practice Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. And the topic that called me today is study yourself. Study yourself. To have some deep feeling about Buddhism is not the point. We just do what we should do, like eating supper and going to bed. This is Buddhism. The purpose of studying Buddhism is not to study Buddhism, but to study ourselves. It is impossible to study ourselves without some teaching. If you want to know what water is, you need science. And the scientist needs a laboratory. In the laboratory, there are various ways in which to study what water is. Thus, it is possible to know what kind of elements water has, the various forms it takes, and its nature. But it is impossible thereby to know water in itself. It is the same thing with us. We need some teaching. But just by studying the teaching alone, it is impossible to know what I and myself am. Through the teaching, we may understand our human nature, but the teaching is not we ourselves. It is some explanation of ourselves. So if you're attached to the teaching or to the teacher, that is a big mistake. The moment you meet a teacher, you should leave the teacher, and you should be independent. You need a teacher so that you can become independent. If you're not attached to him, the teacher will show you the way to yourself. You have a teacher for yourself, not for the teacher. Rinzai, an early Chinese Zen master, analyzed how to teach his disciples in 4 ways. Sometimes he talked about the disciple himself. Sometimes he talked about the teaching itself. Sometimes he gave an interpretation of the disciple or the teaching. And finally, sometimes he did not give any instructions at all to the disciples. He knew that even without being given any instruction, a student is a student. Strictly speaking, there's no need to teach the student, because the student himself is Buddha, even though he might not be aware of it. And even though he's aware of his true nature, if he's attached to this awareness, that is already wrong. When he's not aware of it, he has everything. But when he becomes aware of it, he thinks that what he's aware of himself, which is a big mistake. When you don't hear anything from the teacher, but just sit, this is called teaching without teaching. But sometimes this is not sufficient, so we listen to lectures and have discussions. But we should remember that the purpose of practice in a particular place is to study ourselves. To be independent, we study. Like the scientists, we have to have some means by which to study. We need a teacher because it is impossible to study ourselves by ourselves. But you should not make a mistake. You should not take what you have learned with a teacher for you yourself. The study you make with your teacher is a part of your everyday life, a part of your incessant activity. In this sense, there's no difference between the practice and the activity you have in everyday life. So to find the meaning of your life and the sendo is to find the meaning of your everyday activity. To be aware of the meaning of your life, you practice sasen. Anything that comes to mind with what I read?
Well, I think it's seems like a struggle, basically saying, you know, to avoid being attached. But basically, though, I feel like my mind is Velcro, and you're saying not to get attached, and then how can you not, you know, and then don't even get attached to don't get attached, you know, and it seems, it felt sort of clinical though to the description that we're getting the teachings, but not talking about feelings or emotions or the struggle against it, the desires that come up, the turmoil, you know, and what to do with that, and the attachments that come without noticing it, you know. So it's very kind of simplified, I think, discussion, I guess, something to not necessarily think about, but to take in, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. It actually brings me back to what I was sharing last time I led, where it was a different book, but the teacher was talking about how the Buddha was not interested in figuring out enlightenment. It was almost like, oh yeah, this is the finish line. No, he wanted to actually explore what you just mentioned. The feelings, the emotions, the sensations, the suffering. And that's why if you look into his life story, he left, you know, the kingdom to explore and get present to how much suffering there was in this world. And then he wanted to actually learn how to cope, manage, and break through that suffering. And that's the cycle of samsara, that is understanding that pain exists and suffering is caused by our mind, especially in humanity, that is dual, meaning if it's not white, it's black. If it's not right, it's wrong. If you're not on my side, you're against me. So again, there's a lot that we cause to ourselves just by understanding that it's not trying on what the teacher is telling you. It's almost like taking it on and then experiencing it for yourself, almost questioning it in the sense of what works for you. It defeats the purpose to tell you that you have to stay still when that's going to cause more suffering. You might be in physical pain and then your thoughts are just going to flow. So again, it's all in the world of creating a level of awareness of what's going on inside of you and what's going on around you, including the teacher's teachings. Does that make sense?
Mm.
But I really like what you are mentioning, because even on today's share, it talks about, okay, I don't get attached to the teachings, so what's the point, right? Some of us are like, what's the deal? Like, what's the outcome? What's the benefit? Awareness. What we are practicing here is posture. Yeah, there's a level of posture and comfort that you have to find in your body, and then in your breathing. However, there's a level of awareness that you are creating by sitting in silence, by getting present to the noises around you and the noises within you. Perfect scenario is that this level of awareness rises to the point that we can see this collectively, like you were expressing earlier. We can see this as a benefit in situations of stress. And I can tell you that in the last year, I experienced situations that were almost traumatic, and I could perceive almost the slow motion in the outer world collapsing as I knew it, and me looking calm, when in fact inside of me I was screaming. You know, it's like using what I'm doing here. The awareness in my thoughts, the awareness in my posture, the awareness in my breathing. Because if we see it as reverse engineering, actions, emotions, thoughts, we're taking it to the source. So that way, the more we are aware of our thoughts, the more we can create awareness and consciousness to accompany ourselves in the emotions that we experience on a daily basis, and therefore be aware of the actions and behaviors that we are creating and the listening that people have of us because the way we act. So that is the advantage that we are creating, higher level of awareness. So that way we can create good deeds, good thoughts, good works. As much as possible. Especially if you want to live in the world of karma and merits. And we're still humans, and we're still reactive. However, if especially you're pondering in the space of, how do I stop reacting to my family or to the circumstances around me? This is why we're here. We'll get there.
I was criticized by my mom yesterday.
Oh,
How I
yeah.
talked to her.
I
was arguing.
Anybody else having heated conversations with family members already? Or even in the space of my mind is already preparing for those conversations, right? It's hard to be in the present because I'm already like, you know, in the bargaining, in the dancing, but the conversation hasn't even happened. It's just in my head, so some of us might be in those spaces. Anything else to share? Anything else to say? Great, let's do this. questions? Any comments? Complaints? How was the awareness on this round of the meditation practice? I usually split it in even times, just because I'm obsessive like that, and I want 10 minutes, you just jog. Sometimes it doesn't work like that, but so far we meditated for 10 minutes twice. This is an accomplishment for yourself. Good job. If you're like, so little, believe me, staring at the clock doesn't help. I was impressed by the amount of thoughts I was having in 1 minute. Barely. So, calling myself out on that. Yes.
My mind was, I was aware that when I'm in a group of people like this, my mind always first determines or goes towards, am I accepted and do I belong? That's always the first evaluation
Right.
that my mind is figuring out.
Yeah. And I think I can relate, because earlier I was calling myself out on monitoring myself towards the people around me, so that way I know if I'm in sync or if I'm the outcast. No, but honestly, it does create the sensation of belonging or being in cohesion, or like we were saying, that group effect, where it's almost inevitable to check in with the people around. Anybody else? Anything else to mention? Yes.
Comment all about me. So I first experienced meditation in a group setting. To a regular weekly meeting, and there was 15 minutes of group meditation, and that's how I learned how to do it at group level. I was not able to just do it by myself at home. So after a year or two at that group level, then I was able to take a practice home and have a modest amount of time where I would set aside for meditation. And over the years, I've waxed and waned, so I can do it for a year or two, and then it's kind of like sugar. I can put sugar, and then it just ekes back in, and meditation goes away, and I don't know exactly why I stopped. And one of my favorite quotes about meditation was a friend of mine who said, and this was Alcoholics Anonymous setting, but he said, for alcoholics to meditate is heroic. And I believed him as I was trying to extend my practice into years and how difficult it was. And now I'm at the point where I have abandoned it, and it felt so good to be in a room again doing it at group level, and how a little bit of muscle memory exists, and now it has come back. So it's my experience.
Thank you for being here. And thank you for sharing that, because what's always going back to our conversation about attachment and the conditions being ideal for me to call it and declare it. I practice meditation. Was there a safu? Yes. Was there silence? Yes. Did I cross my legs in full lotus? No. Okay, then I didn't do it right. No, it doesn't have to be as compulsive for us to declare it Sasen. Well, Sasen is seated meditation. Sen, meditation practice. What are the components? I'm going to quiz you. What are the components that I mentioned we're working as we meditate? Posture or body, breathing, and the last one starts with an A.
Awareness.
Yes, 5 points. Awareness. How many times throughout your day you become aware? Sometimes it's all about the outside world. Oh, that beeping. Still going. I'm counting the minutes, actually. And I want to go and figure out what it is. Or else I don't have peace of mind. Sometimes it's all about you, right? My inner world is what's up. But you have some level of awareness. That is meditating. Obviously, if you take it to checking in with your posture, taking a deep breath, checking in what's going on within me, what's going on around me, okay. You're being more diligent. However, what I really like about Zen practice is that you're encouraged to do it even as you wash dishes, even as you exercise, even as you drive. It's just becoming present. So you can pat yourself in the back. Oh yeah, I can do that. Even when I made myself wrong. Right? But at least you're creating awareness of your action, your reaction, your thoughts. And that's practice. Anything to say about that? The last sentence. Well, the last sentence of the section that I read. Says, to be aware of the meaning of your life, you practice Sasen. Mind blown. I was like, I need to remember that. No, but honestly, how many times throughout the day are you aware of the meaning of your life? Even it's to question it. What am I doing today? Okay, at least you're aware of, where you stand, but becoming aware of the meaning of your life, that's practicing Sasen. That's practicing meditation. To be able to create a higher level of awareness so we can be with each other, present with each other, no matter what the circumstances are. That's the world that I want to live in. Even if there's no need for criticism or advice or opinions or judgments. Even if it's just, I'm here for you. I'm here with you. I'm rooting for you.
Can I ask a question with that?
Of course.
So when you mentioned the higher levels of thinking or the meaning of life, I think isn't the teachings too, though, that you're not trying to be any different than you are too, and that is the higher level of thinking, where there, like, the meaning is that there is no meaning, in a way. So, it always just comes back to just right now, whatever you're doing.
Yes, however you're being and however you're not being. And that is the practice. Because if we consider that what we're doing here is being with the things that are not necessarily causing comfort, like a noise or a temperature change, and then I'm present to my own discomfort, it's just a practice to be with others, having uncomfortable conversations, or in situations that maybe, which is 99% of life, are out of your control. And then you experiencing those situations with a level of awareness that allows you to be with whatever it is and whatever is not in the same space, that is what we call in Reiki transcendence. I'm sad and I'm happy in the same space. I like this silence and I also dislike the sounds that are interrupting it in the same space. Like we can be both. And that will be breaking through the duality of our own species, our own humanity, where we usually just evaluate and judge based on two aspects. If it's good, if it's bad. However, it can be pleasant, it can be boring, it can be frustrating, it can be sad. There's so many layers of this life. Whenever I talk about being with others, even while I was doing it, I got embarrassed because it takes some vulnerability, and also because I was present to myself, acknowledging the parts of me that I don't like or embrace, and the parts of me that I embrace and praise about it, preach about. Like, accepting myself with both will allow me to do that for others in my life. It does take practice to be present with my own thoughts and with my own feelings, with my own actions. Will definitely allow me to practice that for myself and others. At least that's where I'm coming from whenever I'm sharing with you here. Anything to say about this? Anything else to say in general? Great, we just sat in silence with each other for 2 minutes without formalities. That was for you over there. Did that make a difference that you missed the bell? Where you're like, where is she gonna start talking again? Did she forget we're here? I didn't. I just wanted to challenge myself to be with you. Silence. Anything to say before we listen to the announcements. Perfect. Meredith, you want to do the announcements?